Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this Sunday, March 8th. I'm Pamela Lavitt, the Director of Arts and Ideas and the Seattle Jewish Film Festival. I see a lot of familiar faces. We have some of our festival donors in the house and JCC donors joining us. This is actually our last program before our Seattle Jewish Film Festival begins next weekend. Kind of crazy, but this program, as in many of our programs this year, are parts of a series called Roots and Resilience. It is the theme for this year's author series and chef series, which is also part of our Chew on This series, which is about thought leaders, chefs, and authors to feed the mind, body, and spirit. Especially given the times that we're living in, Roots and Resilience seemed like the theme, and this story today and hearing from Beejhay will be very inspiring because it is a story of tremendous resilience and storytelling and family and togetherness, and I'm just so glad that we're all here together to be part of this incredible event and this incredible chef who's come from New York, from Harlem to visit us. I want to just thank some of our year-round sponsors that make everything we do possible for culture and the Loeb Family Charitable Foundation. So just give them a big round of applause because we can't do it without their support. This event is run in partnership with the Jewish Book Council, and as Beejhay and I were talking, like she's been all over the country doing events, and I think she still has a whole lot more. So we're just really grateful for the JBC and also for Beejhay for taking time out of her very busy entrepreneurial life to step out of her work and come here. It's a long slog sometimes to come all the way to Seattle, and we really appreciate when we can have conversations like the one tonight. That this is a rich history of many of us don't really have the privilege of learning about, and so I think it's an important thing for Beejhay to sort of be here as opposed to just reading her cookbook, which has incredibly rich history in it. But one of the things I did not know about Beejhay is that she had for, I think it was 18 years, run an organization in New York that's purpose was to sort of do the work of educating people about Ethiopian Jewry and Ethiopian Israelis. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but this cookbook and her restaurant, Tsion Cafe, do it through food. And I think that is exactly why we come and break bread together and why you're all here, is so that we can learn and grow. And hopefully you'll all have a lot of great questions for her. So please welcome Beejhay Barhany is joining us from Harlem. Well, welcome, Beejhay. How's Seattle?
Lovely. I wish it was less rain.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so excited to talk with you about your cookbook, and I'm going to try to stay on track because I tend to ask double questions because there's so much richness in this cookbook. And I think the first thing I just want maybe everyone to understand is why Gursha? Why is the cookbook named Gursha?
Showcase love, respect, and friendship. That is nourishment. So I titled it Gursha because I wanted to nourish the readers about the tradition, the stories of Ethiopian Jewry, on Ethiopia as a whole. And not only, in there are recipes, but there are story of integration to a new country, being resourceful to a new place, or, many, and tradition, like a celebration of a holiday, like Sigd. So it's a whole nourishment to the readers. So that is Gursha for you. And, The Simpsons did a quick episode, I think, early, I don't know what, maybe 10 years ago. He goes to a restaurant in California, and they feed him Gursha, and the flavors were so delicious, so aromatic, and he anticipated for his mama to feed him all the time because it's so comforting that somebody feed you. Remember that nourishment that your mom when you were a baby, feeding you with your hands, with their hands, and it's just such a warm feeling that make you connected to that particular person. So there is an episode called Gursha, Gursha, Gursha at The Simpsons. So check it out.
I wish I had the clip. That would have been awesome.
You can Google it. You can find it.
So I'm curious about how you learned to cook, and why is Gursha then part of that story? Like, how did you learn to cook? What's the history there?
Sure. Food, hospitality is part of who I am, part of my Ethiopian culture, heritage. Growing up in the northern part of Ethiopia, Tigray, anticipating for a guest or anybody who will stop by, you will feed them, even though they will say they are not hungry. So growing up in that environment of feeding, everything is around food. From a young age, I recall in Ethiopia, the anticipation to welcome Shabbat or a particular holiday. They will start preparing from Thursday, so midday Friday, they cease from doing any labor to welcome Shabbat. So everything evolves around food, and from a young age, they will give you different tasks, such as cut the onions, the hard parts, not hard, but, or peel the garlic and all of that stuff. So I've been around watching my grandmas, my mom, my aunties, so food is part of who I am, and I find it as a great tool really to engage with people and break a lot of barriers. And everybody likes to eat, don't we?
So it's very unusual because we've had a lot of chefs here, a number of Israeli chefs, but the first 15 pages of your cookbook are sheer storytelling. It's dedicated to your personal journey, the family members, including your mother, aunties, cousins. There are incredible illustrations in this book by Ed and Yilma, which are just absolutely glorious and very animated. But I'm kind of curious about the process of dedicating dishes, and you tell the story and then sort of dedicate dishes to different people in your life. How did you come up with that framework for the cookbook?
The framework for cookbook is COVID. It's unfortunate. I thought about writing a book for a while, since opening Tsion Cafe about 11 years, and people always will ask me, can I get a recipe for this? How do I do that? And 2014, 13, I said to myself, yeah, I will have to compile a book. And I didn't want it to be the typical traditional recipe book. I wanted it to be a great introduction to the rich history and tradition and the stories of my community. Specifically, I focus on the aunties, mom, grandmas, the women, because they are the backbone of keeping the heritage, the tradition of our culture. And I kind of weave in different stories, for example, you will have a story about flaxseed and honey. It's not a complicated dish, but yet is a drink within Ethiopian culture for new mothers. So my cousin Malka, for example, when we made the journey to Israel, we'll go to that as well, emigrating from Ethiopia to Israel, we had to take a whole journey to Sudan and what have you, which took us about 3 years. Nonetheless, she was pregnant throughout that journey, and she gave birth in the middle of the journey. So in order to give her strength and all of that, what the women did to help her, and she basically had to pack her belonging and everything within 20 minutes. So imagine giving birth after 20 minutes, I don't know. But that was the magic potion in a way, the drink, the food that kind of with honey gave her strength. So it was very important for me to highlight that. Or there are many stories. So storytelling interconnected with memories, integration, and that I find it very compelling. It's quite a new way to tell stories of a new community. And as well, Gursha is the first Ethiopian Jewish cookbook that was published by a major publisher in America. I didn't intend
Hands up for that. That's huge.
I didn't intend for that. And lucky enough, we were recognized by the New York Times and the
Top 14 of 2025 cookbook.
Yes, yay! So there is hope. It's unfortunate that there was not much of a stories or books on Ethiopia, East Africa. I hope many publishers, as you may know, if I tell you the struggle that I went through proposing these books, oftentimes people will say, oh, there is no market for this. You know, it's a small margin and what have you. But the story, the cuisine of Africa, specifically Ethiopia, is so diverse with ancient techniques of fermentation and spice blending. It's a gem that is not discovered yet. And I wanted to highlight and celebrate this beautiful culture that I am myself still, discovering. I don't know it all. In Ethiopia, there is over 87 languages, many tribes and ethnic groups, a style of cooking, and all of that. So it's just an iceberg, a tip of the iceberg, discovering the Ethiopian cuisine and all of that. So for me, I wanted to focus on my particular upbringing, the Ethiopian Jewish stories and tradition, and eventually immigrating to Israel.
So I wanted to get into that just for a moment. We'll get back to the cookbook, but you fled Ethiopia at age 4. Mm-hmm. There were 3 generations of your family that had lived in Tigrinya. Is that how you pronounce it?
Tigrinya is the language. Tigray is the area.
Apologies. Okay. And Jews, of course, had lived in Ethiopia for centuries, if not 1,000 years. Mm-hmm. And you were in Sudan for 3 years, I believe, or 2.5 years en route to Israel. Can you please help us understand that journey a little bit and describe the Beta Israel community that you kind of grew up in and came up with?
Yeah, it's going to be here. We're going to be here for a bit. It's going to be a long night. But nonetheless, just to give you a background of who I am, where I come from. I come from an ancient Hebraic community that practiced Judaism for millennia. We're talking about 3,000 years. It's not a community that converted or adopted Judaism. I can go back to the time where I can count 7 generations and which tribe I come from. For example, oftentimes, you probably heard of the story of Queen of Sheba and King Solomon, but there is more to it, to the story of Ethiopian Jews. Many times we probably heard the story of Operation Moses and Solomon, but the Ethiopian experience exists there for millennia. So since we are very close to Passover, I'll tell you this particular story. In the Agadah, you read the book about the story about Moses after he killed the Egyptian taskmaster, right? And oftentimes you are taught that he fled to Midian. But according to a lot of sources, the Midrash or Sefer Yashan, he actually fled to Ethiopia. He fled to Ethiopia and ruled there for 40 years. He married an Ethiopian princess. We, the Beta Israel Ethiopian Jews, believe that we come from him, from Moses. We are ancient keepers, or people who keep the ancient practices of the Torah. Oftentimes, we come from the tribe of Dan as well. When the 12 tribes, the 10 tribes were expelled, and the tribe of Dan went to Ethiopia. So this is where I come from. This is my ancient community, ancient Hebraic people. And as also, majority of the time, the yearning as a Jewish people that being in the diaspora, Hebraic people that being in the diaspora, the yearning for the return or unification of the people of Israel was there. And that's why my community from Tigray in the early 80s decided to make the aliyah, the journey from Ethiopia to Sudan, eventually to Israel. The journey was quite treacherous, and it so happened, you have a whole story there. I'm not going to go over it, but around that time, there were a few factors happening. It so happened that I think 1974 or a bit afterwards, the Emperor Haile Selassie was assassinated, but there was a coup. Mengistu Haile Mariam took over. He was a dictator that basically terrorized everybody, Muslim, Jew, and Christian. And a lot of people basically started to migrate to Sudan for safe haven and what have you. It so happened that the Beta Israel, my community as well, been in the planning, on the thinking of it is time to reunify with Am Israel, the Jews, the Jewish diaspora and what have you. So they literally did the exodus. People had wagons and horses and started traveling from Ethiopia to Sudan. And of course, it was all coordinated, kind of underground collaboration with different villages and all of that stuff, which I don't know. I was 4 years old. But this is all from the stories from the elders and my grandma and all of that. That's basically what happened. That's the journey to Israel. We arrived in Sudan. At that point, we left 1980, arrived there about maybe a couple months afterwards. We had to stay in Sudan for a bit because there was a lot of bureaucracy and what have you going on in Israel. At that point, people fully did not really recognize the existence of black Jews. That was another hurdle. We can discuss that if you may. And from there, there were different leaks, and we cannot go to the whole history there, but that kept us there for a bit. And afterwards, I was lucky enough, there is a cousin of mine that worked with the Mossad, Farada Aklum, we call it the Moses of the Ethiopian Jewish community. He managed to collaborate with a few agencies, the AAEJ, if some of you know, American Association for Ethiopian Jewry. They were quite a student organization in North America that kind of did a lot of mobilization for the recognition of Ethiopian Jews. Not many of you know of them, but because, whatever it is. Anyway, he came to Sudan after years of, we thought he was dead. It was incredible encounter, meeting him, seeing him, and he managed to coordinate all the passports and put us on a Jeep, on a Land Rover, with a Scottish driver and a Kenyan driver. Here we go from Khartoum, driving through Kenya, Uganda. It was quite incredible for me. By then I was 7 years old. I recall this majestic moment riding with Jack Charity on the top of the Jeep. We drive through the safari in Kenya, and I see these giraffes running away from the noise of the motor. I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. So, and that's why you'll see a Land Rover and a giraffe drawing there in the book. So that's my journey. So Ethiopian Jews arrived in Israel in many ways and many forms. We keep it there.
There's a certain point in the book in which you have a subtitle that says Minorities Again, and which you realize that arriving in Israel, the promised land, the land of milk and honey, all of the imagination and the exilic idea of it was still a challenge once you got there. And I'm just wondering if you might just talk a little bit about your experiences. And you served in the IDF, you went to school there. Obviously, you made a decision to move to Harlem, which we'll talk about after. But what does it mean to feel like you're minorities again, moving from Ethiopia as Jews to, a black minority in Israel?
Yeah, it wasn't easy. I can tell you that, it was somewhat shock for white Jews to see black Jews. We were shocked to see white Jews as well. All right? But on that note, we have to be open and understand that Judaism come in different colors. We are very much diverse than anything else. There are Jews in Yemen, Ethiopia, India, China, Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa. That's the Jewish world. A lot of people are in the understanding of very monolithic religion, but it's a lot more rich and diverse and unique as it is. Oftentimes I find that, within the Jewish world, when we arrived, people are busy asking, so how are you Jewish? How you practice this and that? You need to understand that there is many ways to practice Judaism. There is no one way. Because of somebody doesn't speak Hebrew doesn't make it less Jewish than anybody else. Because somebody didn't eat ham and tashin, right, doesn't make it less Jewish than anybody else. That's unfortunate. That's why it was so difficult. Because Ethiopian Jews, I tell you, for example, I say ancient Hebraic tradition, right? In Ethiopia, Shabbat, for example, it was observed so strictly to the point where you eat cold food, you don't warm up your food, you don't put belt around your waist because it's considered a daily hurdle or a daily labor, what is associated with the daily thing, weekly thing, and you prepare you stop ceasing from any labor, cooking, baking, Friday afternoon. The only thing is you're going to put your best clothing, bath, and go to the synagogue, bless on a dabo, and welcome Shabbat. That Shabbat, you do not do anything but giving thanks and resting. And guess what? We arrive in Israel, those Israeli, blasting the music, doing laundry, driving cars. So that's the paradox and conflicts here, right? We know it the ancient way, and yet here is a modern, liberal Judaism, right? Or, for example, when women give birth, in Ethiopia, there is a whole special housing for her, right? Onida. If it's a boy, it's 40 days. It's actually in the Torah. If it's a girl, it's 80 days, which means you reconnect with your child, you rest. And on top of it, the community is so engaged in taking care of your family, your husband, your kids, and they're going to compete with them, the women, who's going to bring food to this new mother. This is the tradition we grow up upon. This is what we know. And yet, we come to Israel, this is a new halacha. It's no longer valid. The temple is no longer here. You understand? So that was the whole shocking aspect of it. But nonetheless, Ethiopian Jews see Israel as their country, even though with the difficulties and hurdles. I wasn't happy or proud taking Ethiopian food to school. I couldn't take injera or anything like it. I was ashamed of it at some point until I finally grew up, came to America, and I became author of an Ethiopian cookbook and all of that stuff. But it took a while to acknowledge your base and your foundation and be proud of who you are. So in terms of the Jews immigrating to Israel and the difficulties, nonetheless, I think Ethiopian Jews are more driven to join any of the different division in the army or contribute, even though there is a lot of discrimination and racism. I hope, it's unfortunate that oftentimes we unify and we come together only when bad things happen to us, yeah? But I think we need to dig deep down in and really embrace one another, even though they have a different practice and tradition, because when somebody comes to attack, they will attack any Jew or Israeli regardless of their color, right? They are not going to say, oh, she's Ethiopian, let me pass. They're going to attack. They attacked me at Tsion Cafe. They bombarded me with harassment because I call my establishment Tsion, because I'm Israeli. Nonetheless, even though as a minority person, encounter all the difficulties in Israel, but yet to them, I am the enemy as well. So here, we as the Jewish people as a whole, we need to become a lot more stronger, more embracing, rather than looking into the differences of our practice or our color or whatever it is, a denomination. Yeah.
Wow. There's so much to unpack there. Really, and hopefully you all have questions, but I wanted to say that, the racism in Israel, the things that you experienced, but you made a decision after serving in the IDF to come to Harlem, of all places, right? And so maybe rather than me tell what I've read about your journey to come to the United States and why there, and then the project of Tsion Cafe and how you arrived at that, but also you was it 18 years that you were the head of the Beta Israel of North American Cultural Foundation, which just purpose was to educate people about the diversity that you're talking about. So can you tell us about your move to Harlem, why, and why did you found that organization in the United States?
Yeah. So coming to the promised land of America, my first encounter was 1996, 30 years ago, with New York. When I finished the Army, I decided to venture out and become my own the wandering Jew on my own terms, right? So I came to the Americas. I had a fixation to learn about the Incas and the Mayas. God knows, I don't know why, and the Native Americans. So I came to travel here. My first stop was New York City. Loved what I saw, the melting pot of the ethnic groups, the different flavors and people. I'm like, goodness, this is the place. Israel is diverse, but this is nothing. I mean, Israel is nothing in comparison to this. I want to be part of it. Yeah, left, continue in my journey, to Central and South, spent a whole year, even managed to learn Spanish. After that, even did the Machu Picchu, the trail, the 7 days. It was a piece of cake of walking. Anyhow, did that, went back to Israel after a couple of years, didn't find myself, and New York was calling me. So came to New York. There were a few Ethiopian Israeli that went to the whole same experience as myself, finding new opportunities, no place, and typical good Jewish people on a Friday night. What do you want to do? You want to go to a synagogue? Go to a synagogue. We go, a couple of us, to a synagogue. And this particular lady asked us, so who are you working for? Oy vey, right? Yes. It's unfortunate that we had to be the babysitter, the nanny, or anything like it, but not to come there as a worshiping Jew on a Friday night. And we said, Holy Grail, okay. There is something to be done about this. And we decided to form a simple organization where we do outreach and education about Jewish diversity, or the existence of Black Jews or Jews of color and all of that stuff. We have done that through Shabbat dinners, film screening, specifically on the emphasis of Jews of Black African diaspora. So this is where I had the opportunity to screen films about the Jews of Nigeria, of Ghana, Uganda, you name it, and all of that. And a lot of people come and they wanted to learn. They opened themselves and all of that. And afterwards, the question of food came. So we provided Ethiopian food. And so people started immersing themselves in those activities. And I can say for sure, the understanding of the how Jewish is perceived right now is a bit different than was 25 years ago, which is wonderful to see. People are more, cautious of what they ask. And that's basically BINA. And if you know, BINA is knowledge, BINA Vada'at, and it's so acronym, so happened to be Beta Israel of North America. So it worked pretty good, right? So we wanted to provide knowledge and understanding of the rich tradition history of Ethiopian Jewry. BINA is still there as a nonprofit. I wish I could clone myself to be here and there, but there are different activities that is collaborated with Tsion, where we do Ethiopian Shabbat dinners and stuff like that. So that's how BINA came upon. And after that, Tsion came. Tsion was established in 2014 in Harlem, Sugar Hill. And I chose to go and move in Harlem because it's the center of Black excellence. I didn't grow up in the environment when I saw a lot of Black business owners, or the history of Harlem and its own. It was quite fascinating to me. And so I come there. and opened Tsion Cafe. We called it Tsion because even though I'm in the West, my heart is always in the East. That's Tsion. That's my Zion, where you can nourish and educate people about the flavors of Ethiopian Jewry. And we spell it Tsion.
And the building that you're in is quite interesting too, right? It has like layers of history in the neighborhood, correct?
Correct. So 763 St. Nicholas Avenue, throughout the Harlem Renaissance, used to be Jimmy's Chicken Shack. So throughout the heyday of the Harlem Renaissance, this is where Art Tatum, great piano player, will play, which is the inspiration for Charlie Parker. This is where young Malcolm X will work as a waiter. This is where Red Fox from Stanford and Son will work in the kitchen. It's incredible. Or Billie Holiday or Hazel Scott, all those people that actually were quite influential on the civil rights movement and paved the road or the way for many immigrants, such myself, to come all the way from Ethiopia, establish a business, and celebrate my identity. So, you know, it's kind of intertwined after all. And there is a lot of connection between Harlem and Ethiopia. It's not necessarily Jewish, but very much so. Under 1818, for example, throughout the Jim Crow, there was, black did not have their own churches. Baptist church, for example. So a few free enslaved African-American and Ethiopian sea merchants came together to create a place where they can worship freely and celebrate the identity. And that there was born the Abyssinian Baptist Church. As you may know, Adam Clayton Powell and many people, it was formed downtown New York, but throughout the year it moved all the way to Harlem, the center of black culture. And from there, many, influential people. Not only that, Ethiopia oftentimes for the African diaspora or the African American, it seems as a beacon of light. And the reason is because Ethiopia had never been colonized. Many times the Turks, the British, the Italian tried twice to colonize us. It so happened that the Battle of Adwa, 130 years ago, we defeated the Italian, Mussolini, and it seems like, and then at that time, throughout the Great Depression, over 20,000 African Americans wanted to enlist and help defend Ethiopia against Mussolini. That's the Harlem-Ethiopia connection. Yeah, because they saw this is the land of hope for us. And of course, you know the story of Rastafarian and all of that. We're not going to go there. But the whole color of green, yellow, and red, for example, many countries that was independent after the colonization, they adopted those colors as a symbol of victory. And we can go on and on in history, but I will stop right there.
Amazing. Well, let's get back to the food for a second, because I think so much about the food and the recipes are reflections of that resourcefulness, of the sort of harrowing journeys of many of your family members and food dedications, but there's so much fusion in the cookbook. I mean, you've got schnitzel and shakshuka, Yemeni Israeli dishes. Today's celebration cake is due to your husband's Caribbean heritage and background. I love that there's barbecue cornbread, collard green, and cabbage borekas, which we need to teach the Sephardim out here how to make those, because we usually only get cheese and meat, and I'd really like collard green borekas. So I'm just curious a little bit about the development of your history and family journey and the fusion with Harlem and the recipes that you've come to know in this cookbook.
Yeah, I mean, as you see, I'm not only Ethiopian, I'm Israeli. I'm immersed in those flavors of shakshuka. I grew up eating shakshuka, malawach, ful, schnitzel. That's what I was taking for lunch for school. That's part of who I am. This is part of my identity. And of course, after I moved to Harlem as a homage. Coloreds are not necessarily only for the South or African American. We have them in Ethiopia. Is gomen is a different species, but I wanted to as well a homage to Edna Lewis, which is one of the African American author of Cookbook. So there we have the corn bread with infused with a little bit of berbera and Ethiopian nitter kebe. Just the infusion of the now, the Harlem with the old Ethiopia berbera and clarified butter. So that's who I am. I am always evolving. I am a New Yorker. For now, I don't know what next. So I'm always going to borrow and try something new because this is part of my identity. This is a part of who I am. And nothing wrong with using ingredients and claiming it as yours. Hummus or chickpeas doesn't belong to anybody. It's an international food, yeah? So let's not politicize that, right? So that's what I try to do. And for example, we made injera tacos with butter fried fish. That is Harlem. The injera taco is homage to the Spanish Harlem, Mexico. I have Mexican workers. Why not? Let's infuse, let's embrace, let's celebrate, let's harmonize flavors. Nothing wrong with that. It's just delicious flavors that we can break barriers and delicious world.
Please. There's so much about what you do, Beejhay, in your recipes, in your spirit, in your educating people, but yet you have had in January, you had to make a decision to close the restaurant to dining, regular dining, and have started to focus on events and fusion events and collaboration events. Ari Shachel, like you mentioned, from Broadway, the band's Visit. Many of you might have seen him on Broadway as one of your collaborators. You're bringing Dr. Ephraim Isaac in, who is dedicated in your book as well, from Princeton. I'm just curious a little bit about what's happening for you now with that decision on the anti-Jewish harassment that made you have to transition.
Yeah, I mean, it's an unfortunate situation that you cannot publicly celebrate your identity or be who you are. It's bizarre, it's unfortunate, especially in America, especially in New York. What happened is, throughout the years, it didn't start after October 7, it started way before. There are always haters that apparently have issue with the fact that I serve malawach, shakshuka, fool, and injera at Tsion Cafe. They had to contest and say, nothing to do with you being malawach and shakshuka has nothing to do with you being Ethiopian and Jewish. But yet, that's who I am. I grew up eating this food. So this is the problem. There is a lot of ignorant people out there that will come and attack you for no reason. And throughout the years, it become unbearable, from swastika, you name it, or harassment over phone calls. I don't want to even say the different words they say. But you get to the point where it become unsafe, really to stay open for people to come in, because you never know who's going to call, what they're going to do. And we just decided to pivot to do cultural immersive events such as Shabbat Ethiopian Yemenite dinner coming up next, the 13th, the
They're
20th.
sold out, though, so tell your friends.
And just this past Friday, we did a Broadway dinner. We know who's coming. Whomever want to be immersed in this culture, tradition, and story is welcome. If you don't like us, stay outside. That's it. And that's the pivot. We are not giving up. But I think for the sake of sanity itself, and I've been busy with touring and traveling, so this is an environment that I think is good for now. I don't know what the future will bring, but we are here to engage, have delicious food, discussion, Feel free to ask me any question that you have in your mind, because I think we're in a safe place where we can talk sincerely, even though sometimes it's tough. This is how we can break the barriers. Really, that's the great tool to engage.
I just want to say, and this is my last question before we talk about the Ethiopian Coffee Ceremony, and then we'd love to open it up to some questions before we do that. But one of the things that I really loved about your cookbook also is, and I've never seen this before, is at the end you have this menu planning section, which is life cycles. It's, birth, death, everything in between, and it's really interesting. And you bring up, Hanukkah, Rosh Hashanah, and you plan a menu. How did you make the decision to kind of want to share that? Is that from your own history? Is it what you did at Tsion? And then I think even the specificity, there was a footnote at the end of the book, which I was really surprised by, about the Garamond font that you use. Like, so much specificity in your choices, and educating us that when you make choices, you have to be specific.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit about, like, the SIG Festival, all the different things that you really wanted to give people a menu for.
Yeah, so I wanted basically to curate something that is more than a cookbook, right? Something that you can pass on for future generation to learn about the Jewish diversity. I curated this particular holiday menu. Oftentimes, for example, any of you heard of the holiday Sigd? Okay.
One person.
Yes, what do you know about Sigd? Not to put you on the spot. Okay. Okay, that's
Will you
good.
repeat that?
To learn about Ethiopian Jewish.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So Sigd is a very unique holiday that actually was preserved by Ethiopian Jewry for over 2,600. At the time when Ezra, at the exile of Babylon, Ezra and Nehemiah, the prophets, wanted to return and to rebuild the temple, right? And this is actually the first Sigd they did. They went on the top of the mountain, they read the scriptures from Exodus, Psalms, and recited all of this to return and rebuild. So happened, there was, they rebuilt the second temple and all of that stuff, but there were many Jews throughout the diaspora that were scattered. Still, not everybody made it back. Right? So specifically, Ethiopian Jews hold on to that holiday for millennia. So every 50 days after Yom Kippur, always, Yom Kippur, 50 days afterwards is Sigd. That's your calendar if you want to celebrate it, yeah? And it's a very unique holiday on its own. You go to the highest mountain in the village. Usually in Ethiopia, different villages will coordinate, and that will be a time for meeting and, asking for forgiveness and all of that stuff. So they choose the highest mountain, symbolizing Mount Sinai, which mean, and they will read from the book of Exodus and all of that stuff, and the Ten Commandments, because to Ethiopian Jewry, we renew the covenant every year. Even though the Jewish people did it once in Matan Torah, when they were given the Torah in Mount Sinai. Ethiopian Jews do it every year. The renewal, because it's not a given. It's not a given thing. We give thanks, we ask for forgiveness. So you go to the highest mountain, is Ambover, Tigray, whatever it is, it's a time for gathering. Majority of the time, people are fasting. Oftentimes, people will carry something in their back, like a rock, smaller symbolism of burden, and ask for forgiveness. So the way to summarize all of this particular holiday Sigd is a mini Matan Torah, mini Yom Kippur, maybe somewhat question mark Shavuot, not really because of the 50 days, 7 weeks, but not there. And then the reading of the symbolizing of Matan Torah and all of that stuff. The first half is fasting. People will throw away, on the top of the mountain, we throw a rock, symbolizing of forgiveness, new beginning. The second half, people will come down to the synagogue or to the yard and have a festive meal, which, baking dabo, different stews, whatever is, at their disposal. Sometime would they slaughter an ox or, whatever is there. And that was the sig that been practiced for almost 2600 in Ethiopia. Right now in Israel, it's a national holiday. Since 2008, it became a national holiday. So the Ethiopian Jewish community will go to Armona Nativ in Jerusalem, and it's a day dedicated really to learning about Jewish diaspora. It's relevant because there is no much unity. There is a need for unity within the Jewish diaspora. The unification of Am Israel and eventually returning and rebuilding the third temple, God willing. I don't know if it's going to happen, but that is the whole story behind Sigd. And if you want to learn about Ethiopian Jewish experience, Sigd is a good intro, right? You can cook some Ethiopian dishes, you can tell the story of Oxodus, and to celebrate the unity of the people of Israel. So it's good to adapt Sigd is the Ethiopian aspect, but it's not only, it's all belong to you all, to all of us. It so happened that Ethiopian Jews preserve that, but it doesn't belong only to us. So it's a day of unification, united as a Jewish people, and I think I encourage you to learn more about it, and let's celebrate the diversity of the Jewish world.
I love that. So let's have a round of applause for that. So in a moment, you're gonna demonstrate for us the Ethiopian Coffee Ceremony, and then we'll take some questions right now. But at the end of your book, you introduce us to, is it Janae Paradise, your one of your aunts, who had so much faith in the Habesha Coffee Ceremony. So what can you just tell us in advance of the Ethiopian Coffee Ceremony, and why is it performed at the end of Shabbat?
Yes. Do you drink coffee? Any coffee lovers? Oh, okay. Do you know where coffee come from? Hallelujah.
Ethiopia.
Right. Okay. So within Ethiopia, it actually was born in a region called Kaffa, coffee Kaffa. And there is a whole ceremony around it, going from roasting the green beans to becoming this nice and oily browned coffee beans, and then you grind it, and then you have 3 rounds, which is called abol, is the strongest and delicious cup, and then tona is the second one, diluted, and third is baraka, which is you give blessing, bracha, to the household, and you leave. But it's very spiritual as well. You don't come for a cup of coffee. You come for whole experience of story, tradition. Traditionally, we don't have hambasha or dabo here, but we have cake. Or popcorn with raisin and peanuts. That's how it goes. Traditionally, it's served in a wonderful scenic espresso cups, really nice one, decorated, 3 rounds. And when somebody invites you for coffee ceremony, plan for 90 minutes, yeah? Not one shot, 10 seconds and out. If you ever travel to Ethiopia, every restaurant, they do that. This is really lovely. And I believe there is some restaurants here in Seattle that do that. But for me, on the Jewish aspect, we anticipate for coffee, because of the strong spiritual aromatic of this aroma of when you roast the coffee, it's becoming our esvei besamim for Havdalah. To say goodbye to Shabbat, the queen, you roast the coffee, and everybody come around, eat a little bit with dabo and popcorn. So that's the spiritual connection for me and coffee.
We would like to take some questions before we have the next 90 minutes on the Ethiopian Coffee Ceremony. Just kidding. But let's maybe raise the lights just a little bit, Amit, so we can see. We have a question in the back, and I'm just going to repeat it. Go ahead. More interest in Tsion Cafe, your culinary background, and how you made the decision to open a restaurant.
Yeah, okay. culinary. We started by saying I helped my mom, my grandma, and my aunties still, with the onion garlic. But as time, they would give me the task of to make the batter for the injera or make the dabo. So at 7, 8 years old, I was making injera. I was making dabo. The best culinary school is my people, my mom, my grandma. These are the teachers that really give you the stories and how to make those delicious dishes and what have you. So food was part of who I am all these years. Even though I tried to run away from it, I didn't like the aspect of, in Israel, it's unfortunate, growing up in Israel, oftentimes our Israeli neighbors, they didn't like how spicy or how smelly fermented the injera was, to the point where people left their apartments because it's going to bring down the value of their apartments and sold it to Ethiopians, to that point. But yet, now they figure out that Ethiopian food is gluten-free, so trendy, right? Veganism, how delicious and nutritious it is. And now everybody is eating Ethiopian food. It's so cool and trendy, right? Anyway, that was it. And then coming to New York, I literally started holding Shabbat dinners. So me and a few others, I had an apartment in Harlem. Some families back in Israel, they will call my mom and say, oh, we know your daughter is in Harlem, New York, and my son is planning going to New York. Can they stay by her for a few days? So literally, I became an absorption center for Ethiopian Jews in New York. That's how BINA came about. And everything was around food. Everybody will come and help and cook. And always, people wanted to know what is Ethiopian Jewish food. There is not much of a difference, really, per se. But I said, yeah, here we are. This is what we do. And Tsion Cafe came. We opened. People thought I was crazy doing that. But here we are over a decade afterwards. That's my journey, very briefly.
Bravo. Do we have any other questions? Yes, Liz. I'm going to repeat it because we're recording today's conversation. Hopefully at some point, Beejhay will kindly let us put this out into the universe. But the question was, who rallied behind your support, culinary, the local African-American Black community, the Jewish community, when you were getting the hate?
Well, the rally for support and love came from all directions. And in terms of the hate, we couldn't really pinpoint who they are, because they are hiding behind the phone. They are so coward. But overall, the love and support is overwhelming. Everybody is encouraging me, just open, we'll come. It's not even that the case. To the point where they say, if you're doing only Shabbat dinners and collaboration, the name she mentioned earlier, everybody want to do a collaboration now, Shabbat dinners, and that is the love and support. So the whole notion of still celebrating Ethiopian Jewish food and all of that stuff via stories is there. Yeah, I couldn't say a particular group was there or whoever. I think love and support is coming from all directions, because Harlem welcomed us. Harlem is the hub for Black culture. As a Black person, I wasn't targeted by Black people, for sure not. Majority of the time, there are some white supremacists that could not deal with the fact that I'm Jewish and Black, because oftentimes they say, you're not even Jewish. So you never know. But we're here, standing strong, celebrating our identity nonetheless.
Other questions? Right there.
I immigrated to Israel in 1983, so we moved to Pardes Chana. Are you familiar? Where? Okay, so we were in Pardes Chana, not far from Hadera.
Did you want to know more about the absorption and the Ethiopian Jews? I mean, and where they were. So were you living only amongst Ethiopian Jews, or was there an integration?
No, they were, I think, Romanian, Ukrainian, and Russians, not only Ethiopians. But I can tell you that in terms of absorption of a community or any immigrant group, I don't think it was wise to put them in a very secluded, separated area from the rest of the population. That wasn't a great way to integrate with the rest of the society.
Do we have any other questions? Yeah, Marilyn. Beejhay, can you repeat the question?
Okay.
If possible.
If popcorn, well, you know, I grew up in abundance of cornfields in my backyard. That's popcorn. But, you know, so in terms of Ethiopia, I don't know, just to put in reference, Ethiopia is so ancient and biblical that majority of the different grains that are extinct in different parts of the world, they exist in Ethiopia, right? Going from teff, which is unique to us, going from sorghum to sesame, to coffee, to durum, and I could go, and corn abundantly, but just to, you know, I don't know what people heard of Ethiopia. You probably heard about the famine in 1983 or before, but Ethiopia is mentioned in the Bible more than 20 times. This is the ancient kingdom of Queen of Sheba. This is the time where the Romans and the Greeks were admiring those beautiful Ethiopians, just in reference to history. This is where the gods will actually go to Ethiopia and nourish themselves in terms of the delicious stews those Ethiopians have to offer. So Ethiopia is quite vast, diverse, delicious, ancient. Not to think you about the corn. It's not the first time I hear that, but popcorn is part of the coffee ceremony. Not only that, Christianity came to Ethiopia only on the 4th century. King Azane he sent somebody to the temple in Jerusalem, and then this guy, they converted him through the Coptic Egyptian, and they told him this is particular faith. But imagine, before this Christianity became official in Ethiopia, it was Hebraic, maybe paganism, the way we call it, but there is a lot of history there that we need to dive in and learn. And Judaism, Christianity, and Islam coexisted in Ethiopia. Not only that, when Muhammad been persecuted before he formed Islam. He find refuge in Ethiopia. That's why oftentimes no Muslim nation will ever attack Ethiopia, because we gave refuge to Muhammad, their prophet, and then he went to Mecca. But I keep history short. That's the history of Ethiopia.
Well, let's transition, and so you can do the coffee ceremony and take us through that and walk us through it. And I know that you're going to sit down afterwards and sign cookbooks and answer more questions. But let's give a big round of applause for Beejhay Barhany. So much learning today, deliciousness, and we'll be serving coffee and some treats afterwards. So, Beejhay, I'm going to hand it to you down here.
I have my microphone. Can you hear me? Are you all right? Hello? So, very briefly, it's not the traditional. I do not have all the equipment. I just wanted to give you the sense of aroma and deliciousness, especially if you like coffee. And that is easier to execute. So as you see here, I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but you're more than welcome to see what are the green beans before they are roasted and grounded. So let me tell you a brief story, how we started, who discovered the coffee. Guess who discovered the coffee? Any? A goat, holy goat, yes. The goat did it, yes. So this guy was watching his goats in the mountains, and this goats will go and eat this particular berry. Do you know how the coffee look like? It's green and it become ripe and red. So those goats will eat those berries and become so active and energetic. It was a secret. And he's like, he followed them and find out, oh, this particular fruit, let me take it to my elder and see what happens, right? Yes? So he take it to his elder. Look, Abaye, I don't know what's the secret behind this, but every time they eat this, they have so much energy, I cannot run after them. And he say, oh, you're talking nonsense, leave it alone. And he take the berries, the bunna, the bun, and he threw it to the fire. And after a couple of minutes, you will hear this click, 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 clack, the beans roasting, and then the release of this aroma, which you're going to experience right now, soon enough, in a couple of minutes, is depends on this electricity and all of that. Afterwards, he smelled this, and he's like, oh, there is something there with this aroma. Let's find out. So, and that the whole, he roasted, and he made a drink out of it, which actually kept him awake for his studies and all of that stuff. And then from there, it became a whole, an international drink that spread from there to Yemen. And some people think the Italian invented coffee. But yeah, that's what it is. And the rest of it is populated throughout the world. That's the story of the coffee, the bunna. So thank goodness for the goats. I love goats. They call him Chaldees. That was the guy who herd the goats herder. You're more than welcome to see how he's roasting, or you don't. Oh, you see it there. Okay. I just wanted people here closer. Yes. Yeah, bun, Tigrinya, bunna, Amharic. Yeah, I saw it by the Pike Marketplace. Yes, it was lovely to see, especially with that angel. Yes. They should have been here, co-sponsor. So do you smell a little bit? It's coming? Do you see yourself doing it once a week? Do you love coffee or no? But roasting it, and you can put it in a bag, and put it in, grinder, make a nice espresso. I think, it stays fresh and delicious. You can control it. But, it's a something adventurous that you can take upon you, which is lovely, or especially do it every Motzei Shabbat. How about that? If you want. My favorite food, beside Ethiopian, favorite food, schnitzel, when I was young. I do like a lot of vegetables, sauteed vegetables. That's what I like, mainly. And I heard the salmon is good here, too. So I'm going to explore a little bit of salmon. I had lox and smoked salmon this morning. So for dinner, they say to go to Ivra? Yes, so that's my plan. But I am very much curious about food. I love borscht, by the way. Yes. And I do like gefilte fish, but... yes. I tell you, my intro to gefilte fish, I grew up in a kibbutz Alumim, in the south, Otef Aza. So it was a religious kibbutz, and there was this grandma that hosted me for Motzei Shabbat after the tefillah, and she was making the best gefilte fish I ever had. I don't think anybody can duplicate that. That's my encounter. And the borscht. I love borscht with sourdough. It's delicious when the sour cream. Was she Polish? I think so, yeah. An old grandma, Polish grandma, yes. And I like shakshuka too, but I infuse it with berbere. It's going to take us a little bit of time. It's warming up. Be patient. But meanwhile, we can start giving the coffee and the cake, and we can talk about that, right? I'm going to give you, I don't have a lot of it.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, just to taste it, smell it.
I just want a little on the bottom.
Okay, sure.
Very nice. It is the Israel Cafe in Hell.
נכון?
Yeah.
Yeah, בבקשה. indianish.
Why is cookbook not part of the...
Because of the dietary law is meat. It's meat and it's blood, raw meat. You're not supposed to eat blood. Yes. But yet, listen to that though. This is not even, it's Oromo tradition that was kind of recently incorporated. It's not part of the Ethiopian cuisine. It's Oromo. And that happened, the story is, while they were in war or battle, they didn't want to cook, put fire to attract the enemy, so they started eating raw meat. That's what happened. 5 days. It depends on the season. Winter is longer. Summer is a lot easier.
Okay.
Yes.
And injera is gluten-free.
Well, it depends what you use. You can make it with wheat and corn. You can make it 100% F. You can do durum. It really depends what at your disposal. Yes. And are you from where?
From India.
Well, you do dosa.
Yes, exactly.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I was just saying it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Keep the batter going.
It's hot. But, I mean, you want to taste the coffee here. You want to take a bite? I'm going to put some here. Let it cool down. But just be careful.
This is your coffee?
This is what I infuse with the spices and all of that stuff. You have a cup? I think we have a little bit left. A little bit of, anybody who want to see the second phase in terms of the coffee, and we have some beans here you can try as well. You don't want it fine, remember. Yeah.
This is just into the water then.
And then you take, traditionally, you use the javena, but it's really not easy to boil with on a stove. So I recommend to take a pot. I couldn't put a pot here because it's not connecting, but what you're gonna do, come smell this. This is really delicious. Yeah, fresh. Yeah. So you're gonna take a pot, maybe 2-3 cups of water, and you're gonna boil this in it. Give it a nice boil. and let it sit. Because, this is going to settle down, and then you pour it slowly, and you have a delicious, really handcrafted coffee, with the different aromas.